This is Jay Worth, the Encourager. Never stop believing. I'm telling you, you have to believe it. It's inside of you. It's what you feel. It's what you need. It's what you do. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. Just keep going. Press your way through. Can you believe in what you can't see? There's so much more that's going on inside of you. And the seed that's inside of you, you have to water it. Don't you believe it? If you can press, if you can believe, I assure you, you'll never stop believing. Hey, welcome to the show. I am your host, Juanita Ward. Listen, you are watching Never Stop Believing, and I am super excited to have this show sponsored by earthblendcoffee.global. If you would like to order this, you can click the description box. Also, just remember this, the coffee is great. And I'm telling you, I have a great show for you today. We're talking about Never Stop Believing. Once again, I'm your host, Juanita Ward, and I got to introduce to you my guest, Kellum. Man, how are you, man?
I'm awesome. I don't know about that intro, though. I feel like I'm a big deal or something. I don't know. No, I'm joking. I'm great, man. And look, it's always great to be here, to be with you, to talk about believing.
Yes. Yes.
I love the stories of believing.
Yes.
You know, I love the name of the show, Never Stop Believing.
Yes.
Because, like you said, what happens when you can believe?
Come on now.
You know, the thing that I love about that is belief drives behavior. Isn't that interesting?
Look, you're already getting started. Belief drives the behavior.
Yeah, belief drives our behavior, right? And so, what do you do? Yeah, and belief is also.
You know, you're so awesome because you get what you put in, and what you put in, you're going to get that out in return. And I'm telling you all today, I just want you to sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Most importantly, I want you to understand this, that there's something inside of you that's moving. There's something inside of you that is really going to shock the world. You have inside of you a gift that is so powerful. And I'm telling you, this show was brought to me, Chris, man. You know, when God spoke this to me, he said, I want you to go around the whole entire world talking about never stop believing. If we can just catch on to why it's so important to believe, why it's so important to really dig deep in believing. And you mentioned something a little while ago, and I want to go there. But first, I want to read this quote. Okay? And I like to say this all the time, man. You can sit back, relax, have fun, because we've already said peace be still in the atmosphere. And we just want all of our listeners to really, tag in. But I want to read this quote to you, okay? Because I definitely want to get into your book. But I want to read this quote. Never stop believing in yourself because others didn't believe. And I'm going to read that again. Never stop believing in yourself because others didn't believe. I mean, I could go on and on and on about times where I could have stopped believing. And to be quite honest with you, at one point, I probably did stop believing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't so deep that I couldn't get myself out of it. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, when was there ever a time in your life where you said to yourself, no, Chris. No, you got to keep going. No, Chris, you got to keep, you got to keep going, Chris, because if you stop, my children won't get an opportunity to experience. My wife won't get an opportunity to experience this. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, you said talk about a time. I've had more times like that than I can even think of,
Right.
In my book, one of the things I talk about is I had 10 back surgeries, and I was at the prime of my career, loved my career, but I got put on long-term disability, like kicking and screaming. I didn't want that. Right. I woke up every day excited about going to my job.
Right.
And when that happened, man, you talk about losing your man card when all of a sudden you can't you can't go do certain things.
Right.
And anyway, I'd gotten to a place, after a whole bunch of surgeries, I think I'd had 8 surgeries at that time. But after a bunch of surgeries like that.
Wait, hold up. You had 8 surgeries?
Well, I've had 10, but I had 8. It was after 8 that I got put on disability. 7 or 8, I don't remember.
Wait, so total, you've had 10 surgeries?
10 back surgeries. Yeah.
10 back surgeries. How are you still walking?
Girl, that's why we're here.
Come
on.
Lord.
I mean, right? I mean, that I'm for real. Like, that's it.
Wow, 10 back surgeries.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And you're still walking today after having 10 back surgeries.
I believe I'm
a piece
healed.
of your spine missing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, yeah. But
Wow.
look, there are multiple, you're talking earlier, when's the time when I had to never stop believing? That was
Yeah.
multiple times, honestly, through that process. Can I tell you a story real quick?
Come on, please.
Okay, so during this time, man, like when I was in medical sales, right,
Yes.
and mostly in brain, heart, and spine surgery.
Yes.
Loved it. Got to get up every day, go in the OR, and watch all these cool cases.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time sitting in there going, man, I'm just some dude from Ole Miss, some frat kid, that like, how am I sitting in here with all these brilliant people? And so when that was taken away, man, that was kind of tough because it had become my identity, which I see now, I was really wrapped up in it. I was making money, more money than I'd ever dreamed of, and that was pretty solid. I love that. Loved being able to do things and provide what I thought were all the things my wife wanted: the house, the toys, the boat, the cars, all that, that kind of jet ski, that kind of stuff. And so when I got put on disability, all of a sudden things are significantly different, and there was an 18-month period there where I went from having significant funds to no funds, right? Because 10 back surgeries, or at the time 8, 20, almost 30 procedures. I don't even, all this stuff. That I mean, yeah, you got insurance, but it still costs money.
Sure.
And anyway, it was just crazy. So during that time, there was one particular time where, man, we had lost the money. I was just sitting there, and I was like so dull, and I didn't know how we were going to pay the house note, or just the bills. We had Polly and I, my wife's name's Polly. Polly and I, well, you know that, but Polly and I had sat down, looked at what we were going to have coming in that month, and we were 800 and say 803, an odd number off. We were going to be short that for paying our bills, and I was like, well, that's kind of a drag,
right?
And then so we would just start praying, like, Lord, I don't even know what to do. We don't, I don't know what, we literally didn't know what to do. And we would pray, Lord, that we are short specifically this amount.
Wow.
And, we had 3 little kids at the time, probably 10 and under, 7 and under actually. And then, randomly, like 2 days later, we get a check in the mail, and this is kind of crazy. We got a check from the insurance company, one like like your house loan or whatever, the escrow account or whatever, and there had been an overpayment from like a few years before that, but for whatever reason, we were just getting the check, within $10 of the amount.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I got to talk about this. So you said, okay, so let me do a backstory here, right? So you had everything. All of a sudden, you lost everything. Then you fell to your knees. I call this neology.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So then you fell to your knees, and you said, God, here are the specifics. Now, what I want you to dig a little deeper into this, because you're saying after 8 surgeries and 30-something procedures, you fell to your knees of what you could. And you said, God, specifically, I need this. And it brings me to this: I will supply all of your needs according to your riches and glory.
Right.
But here's the thing. We have to do something. We can go from having it all to losing everything. And you lost that, and something that just happened just out of the blue. And you said you did something specific. You fell to your knees and you talked specifically about what you needed. And then unexpectedly, you get a check in the mail. And it wasn't the time that you could have spoken this on Tuesday, and you probably got this on Friday. But that's just how things work out.
It is.
That's just how God is, right? Like, that's just how things work out. And then Miss Polly, your wife, she connects with your faith, and she believes with you, and you guys never stop believing that this is going to take place. But what caused this was an unexpected, unforeseen accident, right?
Oh, it was this was, at the time, this was the worst thing that I'd ever been through.
Wow.
I couldn't imagine. I just didn't understand. I was a believer at the time, I was actually leading worship on the weekends, during this time. And I don't know, it was really, really hard. But the thing is, that's just one. That's one story. It happened over and over and over again. I mean, another time, like, I don't know, it's probably a few months, maybe weeks. I don't remember specifically, but it wasn't long after that that I went, because you would think after something like that, you're like, oh, God, you're good. Well, I'm good. I got that, we're going to be all right. And I did, but I still, it's still, when you're getting beat up, it's still hard, right?
Did you just say that?
So one particular day, man, like I came in and I was just like, oh, and I went to the mail, that stuff when the mail, like you're excited about the mailman coming because you got something to do.
Right.
But I went and there was I got this letter from this small town church somewhere in Alabama. And it was from this, I assume was an old lady because it looked just like my grandmom's shaking hand, the handwriting, And it just said, hey, Chris, I got your name or whatever. I'm praying for you.
Wow.
Just little things like that. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how did this woman doesn't even know me? Why would she be praying for me? Like, this doesn't make sense. And, and then there's multiple times of being prayed for and believing and being prayed for. And honestly, Juanita, not believing.
Wow.
Like I had a whole group of people pray over me, and and honestly, I didn't believe at the time. I was mad and ticked off, and I was like, whatever. And they did. I mean, and of course, I didn't believe. So like the results followed that, right? Sure. And then I had the exact opposite of that happen, which we can talk about that later. But it was. It's amazing. Belief is powerful, isn't it? Let me ask you this: when you first picked up a basketball, right? I mean, imagine a basketball. It's what I mentioned to you earlier. Basketball ultimately is what the Lord used to get you to where you're sitting right now in all the things that you're doing. But if someone had told you way back when, man, look, Juanita, you're so tired. Just man, don't put in the extra work.
Right.
Imagine that.
That's right.
Imagine had you not been willing to do what others weren't willing to do. What if you just followed what they did?
That's right.
Like,
that's right.
Not only your life, but who knows the countless number of lives that have been impacted by you simply doing what the Lord said to do. Right.
And you make a great point, Chris, because this is what sparked you to write the book. Because your book talks so much about igniting your purpose.
Yeah.
And you have to, here's what I want us to understand. Sometimes you have to get into that low place in order to find the secret place. Sometimes you have to go to that low place in order to seek your purpose, because in that moment is in that moment of desperation. And that's what we're saying. If you can never stop believing, I promise you, you will ignite something inside of you that you've never seen before. I'm telling you this. I'm telling you with so much passion because we've been there.
Yeah.
We've been there.
Yeah.
And we're still going through. We haven't escaped the tests and the trials. No. And never stop believing is important because sometimes we lose hope. Sometimes we lose faith. And you talked about it. You lost faith at some point.
I did.
You lost faith that, these things were really starting to affect who you are. And we're talking about, I love the title of your book. Igniting your purpose. Are you serious? If you ignite something, that means that you give it a spark. If you ignite something, that means that you give it an opportunity.
That's right.
But you have to really, really go there into that place. Because I've never seen someone say, well, you know what, I got everything in the world. I'm at the top of the top, right? And being at the top of the top, I got everything. I don't need anything. Well, it's really in that place of desperation that can take you to a whole nother level. I mean, it will tap into things that you have never, ever seen before. And when we come back, we will definitely continue to talk about this, because I really want to dig deep into your topic. And here's the thing, we are sponsored by earthblendcoffee.global. To order, click on the link below in the description box. It is just that great. We'll be right back after the break. Excited. We're still here talking with Chris, and I'm telling you, I want you to understand this. Never stop believing. There's something on the inside of you that really God is trying to get out of you. There's a seed that he's watered inside of you. And I'm telling you, through our struggles, we learn a valuable lesson. You know, sometimes you have to wait for the plant to grow. Right? They have these things that are very organic that can just all of a sudden sprout up. But here's the thing, the seed that's inside of you takes time, because in order for that seed to manifest to its highest point, to its highest peak, it has to go through a metamorphosis. And you are that seed. Never stop believing in what is inside of you. I'm telling you, there's a passion, there's a dedication, there's a motivation that is metamorphosing into something great. But you got to keep pressing. You got to keep pressing. And I want to get back with you, Chris, okay? Because we left off with talking about this, igniting the purpose inside of you. And the title of your book is called Igniting Your Purpose. First off, tell us where we can get the book from. That's number one. And then I really want us to dig deep into igniting your purpose, because igniting your purpose really says to me, if I find that peace inside of myself, then I will be able to ignite what I never knew that I had. Did you hear what I said?
Come on.
If I find that peace inside of myself, I would be able to ignite what I never knew that I had, which means I will be able to find my purpose. So let's talk about how we can get your book, and then let's go there. Okay.
The easiest way to get the books, just go through Amazon.
Awesome.
Right? But you can go, I mean, if you're around this area locally, you can do that. Or, it's at Barnes & Noble and, the
awesome.
bookstores. To me, it's easiest on Amazon. All right.
Awesome.
What you said about igniting. So here's the deal, Juanita, and you know this, but for whoever's watching, here's the deal. So when I was at what I call the top of my game, right? Everything was great, right? And then it was taken from me. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a weird way of saying it, but it was. And I remember thinking, man, I got it all. Like this is what I worked for, right? And I knew the Lord. I was also serving the Lord during this time. But looking back, I realized my idol or whatever, my main focus was trying to make that dollar.
Come on now,
right?
Come on,
and that's cool. Like it was, like that's fine. But I thought I knew my purpose at the time. But the truth is, I had no idea what my purpose was. And so what I thought was the worst thing to ever happen to me turned out now, years later, I realized, man, I wouldn't take one, not only a day back, but 1 second back, because it is through that.
Come on.
That it was ignited. And after I got put on disability, I mentioned to you earlier about well, I didn't mention to you, but we've talked about Bellwether Church, right? A church that we got involved in here, and we were starting right around the same time that I was leading worship. Well, about that same time, as you know, Ignite Ministries, Ignite Sports started with myself and Chris Snopek, baseball player, remember the baller at Ole Miss, like played with the White Sox, and then Todd Dice,
that's awesome.
Tulane, and then a bunch of other guys that I mentioned in the book, right? And all we did, right, I was a musician. And we started talking like, hey, man, how can we use the gifts that we've been given to, like, do sports camps and do it a little bit differently for for kids in our area, but then, what our goal was to take the kids from the affluent, wealthier public and private schools and partner and then do 50% of that and then go in and give scholarships to all those to other 50%, which was in the inner city schools. And we didn't understand it because, just being honest, we were just a bunch of white guys that were completely oblivious to inner city schools. I'm just keeping it real. But man, you talk about something that exploded, as you know.
Sure.
You spoke at Ignite.
Yeah,
you came there,
awesome.
Right? And it's funny because it was through that experience that I realized this is it. Like,
servant.
It wasn't money. It was. I'd never felt. I talk about there were 3 nights, 4-day camps that we would do, bringing these 2 groups of people together and watching them. When they first get there, everybody's like real tense and weird, but then you would just watch this, like, we never had a fight in 10 years. Thousands of kids never had a fight. Like, think about that, from two worlds just colliding. And we didn't understand it. And then we started bringing different counselors in and all these different people. And man, you talk about it ignited something in me which I did not even realize was there.
Yes.
And that first camp, after the first camp, I'd finished loading up and I went to the top of the hill. I was the last one there, and I turned around and looked over the camp. Sorry, it's hard for me to talk about it sometimes, but I lost it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, 1, what just happened?
Yeah.
But 2, how could I even be a part of this? Man, I'm like messed up, my back's all gent up, but somehow I'm here.
Yeah.
And blessed just to play whatever tiny little role that I could in it. And that was a weird time.
Yeah.
Because I was on one extreme experiencing complete craziness and sadness, But then on the other side, I was like, what is happening? Like, this is, and so that's where the book, Igniting Your Purpose, all it is, it's a bunch of stories about the kids, and things, and the counselors, because we went into it thinking it was about the we're going to do these camps for all these kids. Man, it was them. They changed us.
Yes.
And you talk about unexpected.
Right.
And the counselors, as you experienced, they became this, it grew and it grew and it grew, and these counselors came, and it was amazing. And then, we had also started a church around that time, and it was just a lot of really cool things that were helping, that were being ignited, if you will.
Right.
Forgive the cheesy pun, you know what I mean, or whatever. But that was not only happening in areas and in other people, but it was really happening in our lives, and it was amazing.
So you mentioned, and I'm telling you, when I was there and I spoke to the guys, because it was an all guys camp, and I spoke to the guys, absolutely incredible. And those guys, they were like, who is this woman? Like, who is this woman coming in here? And the first thing I'm going, check up.
That's right.
I'll take all of you. Any of you who want the ball, check up, right? And they were all like, who is this lady? I remember this one tall guy. And I was like, dude, I'll dunk on you. You come on over here, I'll dunk on you. And so I remember that moment. It was absolutely incredible because we were in this big, humongous auditorium, and it was absolutely incredible to see the mingling together, to see all of the faces and everybody starting to, hey, that's my guy, that's my friend. It kind of reminds me of, like, Remember the Titans, right? So, like, that's my guy, that's my friend, and this is my buddy now, right? And so to see all of them come together, I remember a couple young men came up to me and they said, Miss Ward, thank you so much for just believing. Thank you so much for just speaking to us, not at us. And I'm telling you, Chris, see, here's the thing. Had you guys not been a servant, you would have never brought out something inside of them. When I say catapult, when I say taking those young men to the next level. We need more of that today.
Man,
we need more of men coming together. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter black, white, red, yellow. It does not matter. We need more men. We need more people gravitating to our culture, to our generation. Our culture is, we bleed the same thing. You don't say that you're somebody different because the color of your skin. You bleed the same thing. That's the reason why it was so important. Because when we're saying ignite something inside of you, I cannot ignite something inside of me without connecting to something that's inside of you.
Amen.
And that's what you all did. You brought together a group of people. Didn't matter the color, because you had everybody in there. You had people from overseas in there, right? You had everybody in there. And the way that it was so moving and so touching and so gratifying for those young men to come up and say, I mean, and it was, I mean, I even talked to a guy that was, I forgot the country that he was from, but I loved his accent, because I was like, just keep saying it. What'd you say? Right, say it again. And just to hear him say, you know, thank you so much for believing in us.
Yeah.
Because you didn't talk at us, you talked to us. And that's the thing. You gave up a piece of your heart to help somebody else, and you became a servant. How often do we say to ourselves, God, thank you so much for blessing me, blessing me, blessing me, blessing me, blessing me. When do we give back to somebody else? When do we give back? And I want our viewers, first I want to thank the viewers for actually, you know, being here and being a part of this and viewing with us. And I'm telling you, thank you so much for, you know, your comments, and thank you so much for, you know, your encouraging words. But that's just it. When do we say, God, bless that other person? Bless that other young man. Bless that other young lady. God, give to them. Give me an opportunity to give something to them. Give me an opportunity to bless them. Give me an opportunity to just tell them that I believe in you. You know, that's what you guys did. You ignited something inside of them, and then you going to that high point. You going to the high point alone gave you an opportunity to feel one of the characteristics of God, compassion.
You know, Juanita, I appreciate you saying that. If you sum it all up, the only thing that we did, we said yes. And we just took the step, because that's all we could do. Because look, I can't tell you, like,
that small word, go again, YES.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I wish we could say we had everything planned out perfectly, and we tried, you know, we wanted to approach it with a standard of excellence, you know, because what's the Lord say? You know, do it all, as if he's sitting right there with you, and you're working for the Lord, right? So that's what we were doing. Can I tell you something kind of funny about how we started? The very first camp, so right, it costs a lot of money, right? We would raise tens and tens of thousands of dollars to do this, and we raised it. Usually, I'd say 90% of it was raised at $150 a time. You know, whatever it cost that year for a camper, we'd go to, you know, individuals. We'd go to small groups. You know, just say, hey, would y'all be willing to sponsor a kid?
Sure.
That, you know, just like that. And so, well, we thought, man, we're going to raise all this money. With the very first camp, we're a month out. And we didn't have a single person signed up. We had no funds.
What?
But we were on the hook for the camp. We had already signed the contract. You know, we were like, oh, we're believing in faith. Yeah, let's take the step. You know, whatever.
Right.
And
that's good. That's good.
Oh, I was, you know, and so I was like, I was kind of starting to trip out a little bit.
Right.
So I pulled up my, you know, went to my contacts and emailed and hit, you know, what I thought was the group. And I was like, meaning the, you know, like the 10 of us or whatever. I was like, guys, look, we need money. We're broke, dude. Like, just like I've been talking normally, like, y'all got to come on with it.
Come on with it.
Like, and I hit send, and then about 2 minutes later, I started getting these emails, and I was like, and I'd sent it to my whole address book.
Wow.
And everybody was like, dude, what are you talking about? Needless to say, it got funded. You know, but it wasn't it was through me screwing up. You know?
That's awesome.
But it was, you know, and then another thing you said earlier, which, you know, the thing about Ignite, which I still think back on all the time, especially like this summer when all the division in the country was going on, the place in my heart that the vision that I have is when you looked out over that camp, you saw what heaven's going to look like.
Come on now.
I mean, didn't
A
you?
mixture. Come
You
on now.
really did. And I mean, you didn't see a lot of women,
Come
and
on.
I don't mean
It's
it,
all good.
but if women had been in there,
Sure.
which that wouldn't have been
Well, it was a
smart for
guy's
us.
camp.
Right,
Right.
it was a guy's camp.
Right.
But anyway, as far as the way that it looked, just like what you just said, of all colors, man, that was so powerful. And that is what we knew. And that's what, when I said just a bunch of white dudes up there doing that, like that's what I meant. Like, we weren't capable. We could never have gotten the people together because, and the truth is, because we didn't know how.
Right.
We all grew up, honestly, like privileged dudes.
Sure.
And we had never been exposed to the inner city.
Man, hold that thought, because I'm telling you, this is so good. Listen, today's show is sponsored by earthblendcoffee.global. To order, click on the link in the description box. It's just that good. We'll be right back after this break.
I'm LeGrand Elliott.
I'm Cindy Ayers Elliott.
And we have a brand new show called Ag and Culture. We'll be discussing all things agriculture.
But more specifically, how it affects farmers and ranchers of color with national and local guests.
And of course, we're talking culture, food, wine, health, politics, education, and so much more.
Join us for informative and fun conversation with guests from all over the country.
It's a fresh new show, Ag and Culture, every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. on the East, and 7 a.m. on the West.
Watch us on our YouTube channel, MS Footprint Farms.
And on WeBelieve.global.
Welcome back. Welcome back. If you have not been locked in, I'm telling you, it is time to actually get locked in. This is Juanita Ward, and I'm here with Chris Kellum, and we're talking about Never Stop Believing. We left off with igniting your purpose inside of you. And it's so amazing, Chris, because you talked about how it's going to look when we get to heaven. Like, there's so much in there. There's so much that was going on. And we want people to understand this. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter how deep you are. What matters the most is that you go to that place, that you keep believing. You don't need a lot of faith. You just need a little bit. You just need a little bit of faith. Because sometimes you don't have everything inside of you to bring it out of you. God did not ask us to have it all together. Like, seriously? Nobody has it all together. But what he wants us to understand is that if we, Chris, can just believe in just a little bit of faith, and the faith says now, believe now. Believe now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You all had a vision of what was to come. You didn't have the evidence right then because you were reaching out, trying to figure out how are we going to get it together. Because of how we grew up, we see that there's something else out there that's greater, and we want to get outside of our four walls of how we grew up so that we can get an opportunity to experience somebody else. To me, that's amazing because you're trying to experience somebody else's life. In order to grow, somebody else has something inside of them that will ignite the seed inside of you. In order to grow, somebody else has water that we need for this seed. In order to grow, somebody else has the soil that you need for your seed to be planted in. In order to grow, somebody else has something for you. See, one person can do something, but if two link together, we become unified, not divided. I know this to be true. A house divided cannot stand. Do you hear what I'm saying? A house divided cannot stand. Why do we keep dividing what is supposed to be unified?
Isn't that crazy? Like, that question, I think about it all the time. I mean, let me say it like this. I think about it when I see things that prompt, that like remind me, wow, because I go back to Ignite. I think about it honestly all the time,
That's right.
Can I give an example of something that happened at camp? That a unity that was built from the most unusual of circumstances. And I don't remember if this was one of the years that you were there, but we had this kid, right? And he was from a really, really small town. This white kid, big white kid, and he had like a big. It was odd that it was a sports camp, but he was wearing blue jeans, and like a buckle, and his wallet. his phone case was a Confederate flag. All right. He sits down at a table, and right across from him was one of our counselors who was an ex-gang member from St. Louis, and just, the exact opposite, complete opposite of what this guy was. And this dude, he said something that I thought, man, this guy, because this guy's name was Dre, right? And the ex-gang member dude that I was talking about. Well, he said something, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And Dre looked at him. I mean, it was a racist thing this kid said, but he said it in ignorance. He had no idea. Like, he didn't realize what he was saying was offensive, and I was offended. Right. Like, and there was a few people sitting around it. It's one of those things where you instantly look down. It's like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And Dre looked back at him and was like, what? And over the course of 2 days, those two became inseparable. Because Dre looked at me and he goes, man, the first thing that went through my head was going old school on a guy like that. And I was like, yeah, I bet, and because it offended me, as a white guy, it offended me. And he said, but that came out of ignorance. And the two of them, like, we have a picture of the two of them, and they formed this bond, like, they became buddies. And that kid went back to his house a different person with different beliefs than he showed up 4 days before. Come on. And so, I think all the time, what came out of that? I hadn't seen the kid since. Sure. But I know that, like, that, when you're praying for God to expand your territory, when you're asking the Lord to do things, when you take a step, that honor Him like that, well, I mean, you see those examples all the time because He does it, right? Because He's faithful. That's right. And Ephesians 3:20 has become one of my absolute favorite verses in the world. It says, and it's because of Ignite. It just says that God is able to do immeasurably more than you could ever ask or imagine. And here's the key part, with His power at work within you. That's what we saw, Juanita. We saw His power at work. And there was no way, as I said earlier, for us you can't conjure that up. It only happens by saying yes. That's right. And when you take those, what I call steps of faith, you want to know how to ignite your purpose? There it is. God's going to show you. Romans 12:2 tells you that, right?
Come on now, be renewed. Let's go.
I mean, God's in Romans 12:2, He says that do not transform, right? I mean, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's right. Right? It says, then you can test and approve what God's will is for your life, His good, perfect, and pleasing will. That last part's pretty important, isn't it? Because if you had told me when I got put on disability, if you had fast forward 10 years and said, hey, this is what you're going to be doing, and it's going to be not only good for you, it's going to be perfect, it's going to be like, you're going to dig it, Chris. You're going to love it. I'd have been like, you're smoking crack, dude. Like, what? Yeah, there's no way. Right. But just because I couldn't see it did not make it untrue.
Come on now. Say that again.
Really think about it. It's like in the beginning of the quote, in the beginning of the show, you read that quote, right? Just because someone else can't see what you know is inside you.
Chris, you about to make me get up and run, man.
But right, just like we can't let the small belief of others dictate what I call our destiny. Right? We have to believe in Ephesians 3:20. That He's able, man. Like, we don't have to make sense of it.
That's right.
But just take the step.
That's right. Just trust it.
Just
trust and believe.
As a verb.
That's it.
Trust is a verb. You don't wait until you can trust, right?
That's right.
Have faith. Everybody's like, have faith. Well, I've been waiting. I don't have faith. Right. Dude, faith is an action,
Come on now.
It's a verb. Like, take a step.
Come on. And if we stop believing in the faith that we don't see, then we'll never actually experience what we should have had.
That's right. That is it. That is it. Come on,
now.
What you talking about?
See, now you're getting me going, Chris. See, I'm trying to let you come on with it, but I'm telling you, Chris, because you're saying some things that is so igniting to my spirit. Because here's the thing, what do we do all the time? We listen to somebody else's ignorance, and then we make opinions off of it, and we formulate ideas off of somebody else's ignorance. Now, you cannot say that somebody else's ignorance formulated an idea that made you act that way.
Come on.
You have to always be in control of your own actions, because your actions lead to something else. But most importantly, your actions can change somebody else. And I love how Dre said to you, Dre said, his ignorance created my great response. His ignorance created my servant heart. His ignorance almost took me back to my past. I almost dipped back. I almost looked back because I was about to clock him. Okay?
I hope that's all he was going to do.
Okay? See, here's the thing. I want to be real. I want to be real, because in order for us to really dig deep into our faith, there's so much that's being thrown at us. People waver in faith all the time. And sometimes you want to look back at your past and knock it out. Yeah. Because sometimes the past continuously to haunt you. Sometimes the past pulls you forward. It lets you go forward, then you drive back, and it lets you go forward, and then it pulls you back. It's like that gravity effect. But here's the thing that Dre did, and this is a great example. Dre said, Mr. Chris, I could have knocked him out. I could have said some words to him. I could have really, really went there because it offended me. And you said something that was important that linked with him. You said, Chris, it offended me too. And I believe at that moment, Dre said, you know what? I see your response. So let me cool down on what I'm thinking I may do, and let me respond in a different way. See, we have to come in the opposite spirit in order to get to that next level. When we have doubt coming against our mind, say, I believe. When you have fear coming against your mind, say, I have faith. So you have to speak the opposite in order to receive what you want. And you got to keep going, because it's through that process. When you get down so deep in the trenches, you don't have no other place to go but up. There's nowhere else for you to go but up. You can get down so far, so low, and the next place that you'll go is up.
You know,
it's up.
Juanita, can I take it a step further?
Come on with it, man.
So you said something at our camp. You said your circumstances don't define who you are. You were telling your story, right? And you mentioned your circumstances don't define who you are. Like, you really think about that. Your circumstances, they don't define who you are. And the biggest thing that happened to me during all that time of igniting your purpose, there's this one day I was sitting there, and I'm just keeping it real, right? I had a bunch of surgeries, right? Pain pills.
That's right.
I had dozens of bottles of pain pills, right? That I could just and man, you know, I'm an ex-partier, man. I'm an ex-musician and all that. Like, I came from the rock and roll side, right? So I didn't need a whole bunch of pills. But I was miserable. I was sitting there one day on my couch, man. I had this cool dog, Louie, you know, who was like this little cool. Louie and I were tight, you know. Rest his soul for now. But that day, I remember I was at an absolute low point because I couldn't stop taking the pills because I was hurting. Not that I was just addicted to them, but when you're in chronic pain, you never know when to stop, right? And I remember thinking about, like, I got up that day and I was laying on the couch, and I'd honestly just had surgery not too terribly long before. I was still in the recovery or rehab, whatever you want to call it, space. And I looked over, and there was this tree. This is going to sound weird, right? This is going to sound weird, but I looked over, and there was this tree frog. This little green tree frog that was stuck on my window. I just figured, you know, the kids always have these toys like these. You know, I had little kids.
Somebody just threw it on the window.
I just figured it was something fake, and I was laying on the couch, and over on the coffee table was a bottle of pills, right? And I was like, and I hated having to take those things, and I remember looking at that frog, and I just assumed, like I said, it was fake. Look at it, sit there. Like, whatever, I got my Bible and just laying there, you know, and I end up falling asleep, and I wake up a couple hours later. I look at it and I go, man, I'm not feeling too great. I want to take that pill, and I was getting mad. And I looked over, and that tree frog still wouldn't move. Wow. And I was like, man, I don't know why I was so tripping on the tree frog. And all of a sudden, I saw the frog's eye just go, doom.
Wow.
One little tiny, and I was like, whoa, that thing's alive.
Right.
I had my Bible, I just flipped it back over, right? I just laid it across here, and when I opened it up, underlined, I was at Psalm 46:10.
Oh.
Be still and know that I am God. And so when I looked at that and I was like, that is one still frog. Like,
wow.
Right? And then and there was something in that moment. I started doing some reading. I was like, you know what? I know what I got to do.
Come on, Chris.
I got to believe what God says about me instead of what my mind says about me.
Come on, Chris.
and realize that my circumstances don't define who I am.
Wow.
And so I looked over at those pills and I looked at my dog Louie and I was like, dude, I ain't taking another one of them freaking pills.
Come on, Chris.
And I took them and I flushed them, which, by the way, was the worst thing I've ever done. You know, like I should have just slowly gotten off of them and not gone through withdrawals and all that. But that was a defining moment in my life.
Wow.
And I can take it back to something you said at camp. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just, you didn't know that. You're just sharing your story. John Maxwell says the same thing.
You're right. And we'll come back with that because don't let your circumstance define who you are.
No.
It's the circumstance that can really affect your future. And if we allow our circumstance to affect our future, it will cause doubt. It will cause disbelief. We'll come back with this in a moment. Today's show is brought to you by earthblendcoffee.org.globe. To order, click on the link in the description box. It is just that good. We'll be right back after the break.
On WeBelieve.global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.global or call 800-492-5186, option 1. Do you have something to say? Do you want your voice heard? Join the WeBelieve.global lineup. Be the star of your own show. For more info, call 800-492-5186, option number 1, or visit online at WeBelieve.global.
Welcome back to Never Stop Believing. And the last thing that we talked about, and I really want to harp in on this, is don't let your circumstance define who you are. If your circumstance define who you are, then it brings doubt. It brings disbelief. It brings about a fear that you're not supposed to have. See, I'm reminded where it says in the Word, God has not given us a spirit of fear. And let me talk to you right here. And I want you to understand this. God has not given you the spirit of fear. He's given you the spirit of power, of love, and a sound mind. And most importantly, self-discipline. We have to believe that fear trumps faith when we don't believe in ourselves, when we don't know who we are. But when faith trumps fear, we are defined in who we are and what we're supposed to do. And we don't need validation for somebody else to come in and tell us. You got to speak life to yourself every single day. You got to speak to yourself and you got to say to yourself, I will succeed. I have purpose inside of me. I may be knocked down right now. I may be out right now. I may not have all that I need right now, but I know that if I can keep going, if I can keep pressing, if I can keep believing, I know that I will beat my fear. I know that I will beat my fear. And look, I almost stood up on that because I know. Because I know, see, 2018 was my moment of transition. 2018 was my moment of turnaround. And I'm so ignited because it was my moment. And we're talking about you, Chris, when you went through those surgeries and you went through that mental, a battle with yourself. And you're bringing me back to 2018 for me. It was my moment of define who you are. Don't let all of those negative words define who you are. Define who you are. Talk to yourself. Believe. I mean, I had so many people, Chris, I had one person to tell me, why haven't I banged my head up against the wall? See, we're putting you through this on purpose, and you still haven't banged your head up against the wall. You are still here standing, and you still hadn't banged your. I would have banged my head up against the wall a long time ago. Chris, when I was playing ball, I had my players my teammates to ask me, Juanita, why haven't you done anything to yourself? All of this stuff that you're going through with basketball, I don't know how you're still able to take it. I don't know how you're still able to keep going. Chris, I've had so many people to tell me that I wasn't going to make it, that I was never going to succeed, that I was dumb, I was stupid, I was crazy. I've had so many people to tell me that what am I doing? Like, why do I want to keep going in something that's not making a profit? Why do I want to keep believing in something that doesn't show why do you want to keep going? What are you doing? Yes, believe it or not, people were actually saying that.
Golly.
I can't tell you how many times I've had people to tell me, what you're doing does not make any sense. Like, why keep doing something? What you're saying, why keep doing what you're doing? The hardest thing that I had to deal with was the question of, why didn't I bang my head up against the wall? Let me tell you something why I didn't. Because what's inside of me is greater than what's on the outside of me. He that dwell on the inside of me is greater than what's on the outside of me, because I have something living on the inside of me that won't let my flame go out. Matter of fact, Chris, that one time when I was in college, all these words were coming against me, calling me names that I didn't even know that was attached to my name. I knew that my name was Juanita, but all of these other curse words that was being attached to my name, I had no idea. I had one coach to say that we were dogs, we were monkeys, we were stupid, we were crazy, we would never amount to anything because we would not just get it the way that they wanted us to get it. I had another coach to grab my teammate and throw her across the room. Like, all of this stuff I was looking at. And then I had a person to come and put their hand directly in my face and tell me that I was a stupid you know what. And to this day, I want to let you know something. Had I given up because of all of those words that were spoken, I would have never been able to see the blessing that we're at today. I would have never been able to achieve what God has allowed me to achieve today. I would have never been able in the middle of a pandemic to write a book called I Will Succeed. 15 principles that winners can embrace to win. I would have never been able to see what's inside of myself had I listened to all those words. But I was reminded in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those that love it shall eat its fruit. So we didn't let life's circumstance define who we were.
Man, you know what? A couple of things on that. One, just because someone else can't see themselves doing it doesn't mean that you can't do it, right? Because they project that on us. If you're talking about doing something, or if you're not doing something that someone else thinks you should be doing, and they can't see themselves doing what you're about to do, or what you're thinking, or the path that you're going to take, because it doesn't make sense. And when I said earlier that we have to see ourselves the way God created us,
That's
because
right.
look, our brain is a weird thing. That's what I do now, right? I tell you, I have my company. We use neuroscience. We use scientific principles to help develop a high performance mindset.
That's right.
But it's also backed by scripture, right? So when you think about what someone else is saying, you think about, we go back to our past. We live in the past so much, don't we? We hear the same things that someone else says. Mom said you were this way, so you're gonna, your mom says your dad was this way, so you're gonna be this way. Well, that's not what science says. All these things that get stuck in our head from what other people are saying. But what's the Lord say? He says you're a new creation.
Come on now.
You wake up every day with new mercies. Right? Really, you are a new creation. The old is gone.
Come on now.
The new has come. So when I said seeing myself the way He sees me, and not the way that I see myself, because the truth is, I can see myself in some pretty dark places. But I realize there's this person in me. There's a person in every single one of us. I call it this little, the little inner warrior. Inside every person that's listening to this, every person on this planet has got that has got themselves that's inside them, and they know that person as good as better than anything, right? But we're afraid to let that person out. I call it Chris 110, Juanita 110, the 110% version of you. And that version, that warrior, that's the warrior that God put inside you. The warrior that's willing, that's able, that's responsible, redeemed, important, obedient, and ready.
Come on, Chris.
You know what I mean? Like that guy, that Chris. Girl. And we allow our past or our current circumstances to dictate whether or not we let that person out. Can you imagine going your whole life, Juanita, and getting there on your deathbed and going, man, I probably should have done this. I wish I hadn't done this. Man, look, I hit 50. I hit 50 years old, you know?
Yeah.
And when I hit 50, there was something about that I was like, no. And I had already been living like that, but there was something about, I'll never again let anybody even know words outside of what the Lord says. I can't let them define me because it's not who I am. We don't believe it. And science is the same thing. You can change literally who you are by the words and what you put
18:21.
So think about this though. The Lord says, "Guard your heart; it's the wellspring of life." Right? Some other translations, right? They say, "Guard your." What? Thoughts. That's right. Like the New Century Version. Guard your thoughts, right? Because of how they saw the heart back then, right? It's your being. But isn't it interesting that he said guard your thoughts, and yet neuroplasticity, a fairly recent discovery, shows that, wow, you're not born this way. You're not this way. I mean, you can become who you want to become, and that your brain is actually moldable through what? Thoughts. Think about that. Your thoughts. There's a peak performance study because I work with athletes, and there's a peak performance study that Christine Porath did, and she's a neuroscientist from Georgetown, and she's done a bunch of cool stuff. And they found that 83% of diseases are facilitated, originated, or exacerbated by negative thinking, and that when you speak out that negative thinking, you go from when you think something negative over and over, it becomes 4 to 7 times more likely that the very thing you're thinking is going to happen. 4 to 7 times, right? But when you speak it, what happens?
Power.
It goes from 4 to 40. It adds a multiplier of 10 on. So now you're 40 to 70 times more likely that the very thing you don't want to happen, that you're speaking out, man, practice is going to suck today. Oh, man, I could never do that.
Right.
Now you speak it, and it's 40, 70 times more likely that it's not going to happen. Why is that? Here's why. But think about every time, keep going back to what the Lord said about thoughts, right? About guard your, and that's just one of many places he talks about. The reason that is we all have this filter in our brain, right? It's called the reticular activating system. You ever bought something, Juanita? You ever bought a car, maybe a cool shirt? You didn't see it anywhere. Before you saw it every blue moon. You thought, this is super cool. And then you buy it, and it's like, say you bought a cool red shirt like you got. I was like, dude, all of a sudden, wait a minute. The next day, you see that shirt everywhere? How's that happen? Did everybody leave at that particular time and all of a sudden buy that one thing and show up at Juanita's house to say, hey, look at all this that I've got on the TV? Right? No, it's because that filter we're talking about is your reticular activating system. It's that filter. That filter lets in information that it sees as important. How does it know it's important? Based on what we focus on.
Come on now.
You focusing on the past?
Come on now.
Or are you focusing on who you can be, who God says you can be? Because, think about people that go, oh, I'm always late. Aren't they always late? That's what you call speaking into existence. Why? Because belief drives behavior. And when you put in your filter that I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do this, I'll never be able to do that, your brain, the filter, the RAS goes, well, hold on, let me show Juanita, let me show Chris every time in their life that they have failed to model that behavior.
And I like what you're saying, Chris. See, to sum this all up, what we put inside of our brain, what we speak out of our mouth, shapes our future. Chris, you've spoken so well today. You've said so much stuff, man, that really has touched my heart. Your book, Igniting Your Purpose, is out on Amazon. My book, I Can, I Will Succeed, is out in Amazon as well, and you guys can go and get that. But Chris, I'm telling you, I want to thank you so much, and I want to just tell you how much I appreciate you sharing your story. You got to come back on the show, but I appreciate you sharing your story, and I appreciate who you are. And I want you to know something. Don't ever stop believing in yourself. Don't ever stop believing in the gift that's inside of you. Don't ever stop believing in what you are capable of doing. When you speak the words, you frame your future. When you speak life, you frame everything about what's going to happen. Your future is already set. God has a plan. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I really, really appreciate all that you're doing. I love you from the bottom of my heart. I am Juanita Ward, and you've been watching Never Stop Believing. Today's show was sponsored by EarthBlend.Global. This is Jay Ward, the encourager. Never stop believing. I'm telling you, you have to believe it. It's inside of you. It's what you feel. It's what you think. It's what you do. If you can believe it, you can achieve it. Just keep going. Press your way through.